The Great Pyramids of Giza, Secrets of the Sand. Hello and welcome. Today we are going to a very old and special place. We are going to Egypt to see the Great Pyramids of Giza. These are some of the biggest and oldest buildings in the world. They have stood under the hot sun for thousands of years. They hold many stories and many secrets. Before we begin our story, I have a question for you. What is the oldest thing you have ever seen with your own eyes? It could be a building, a tree, or something in a museum. Tell me about it in the comments below. I would love to read your answers. Now, let our story begin. Our story starts a very, very long time ago. Imagine a world with no big cities like we have today. There were no cars, no tall buildings made of glass, and no electricity. The world was quiet. The most important thing in this place was the river. The river was called the Nile. The Nile River was long and wide. It was the life of the land. It gave people water to drink and water for their plants. Near this river lived a young boy. His name was Kael. Kael lived in a small house made of mud bricks. His house was cool inside, even when the sun was very hot outside. Kael lived with his mother, his father, and his little sister. His family was not rich. They were simple people. They worked hard every day. Kael's father was a farmer. He grew food in the dark, rich soil near the river. Kael helped his father. He carried water from the river to the plants. He watched the plants grow under the big yellow sun. His life was simple and followed the sun. He woke up when the sun came up. He went to sleep when the sun went down. One day, something new happened. Men came to Kael's village. They were from the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was the king of all the land. The Pharaoh was very powerful. People believed he was a god on earth. The men from the Pharaoh had a message. The great Pharaoh Khufu wanted to build a new house, but this was not a normal house. It was a special house for his body after he died. It was a house for his forever sleep. This house needed to be big. It needed to be strong. It needed to last forever. This house was a pyramid. The men said the Pharaoh needed many workers. He needed strong men to help build this great pyramid. Kael's father was a strong man. He and many other men from the village decided to go. It was a great honor to work for the Pharaoh. They would be paid for their work. They would get food and a place to sleep. Kael was sad to see his father leave, but he was also very curious. A house that lasts forever. A building as big as a mountain? He could not imagine it. His father promised to come back and visit. He told Kael to be a good boy and help his mother. Kael watched his father walk away with the other men, following the river north to a place called Giza. Months passed. Kael missed his father, but he worked hard. He helped his mother and took care of his sister. He thought about the Great Pyramid every day. What did it look like? How could men build something so big? One day, his father came home to visit. He looked tired, but his eyes were bright. He told Kael stories about Giza. He said it was a busy place, like a city of workers. There were thousands of men there. They were all working together on the Pharaoh's pyramid. He described the sound. It was always loud. The sound of men shouting. The sound of tools hitting stone. The sound of big things moving. Kael's father brought a small piece of white stone with him. It was very smooth and bright. He said, "The whole pyramid will be covered in this stone. It will shine in the sun like a great star on the land." Kael held the stone. It felt cool and heavy in his hand. He wanted to see it. He wanted to see the Great Pyramid. He asked his father, "Can I come with you? I am strong. I can help." His father smiled. "You are still young, Kael. The work is very hard and very dangerous." But Kael asked again and again. He showed his father how he could carry heavy buckets of water. He showed him how strong his arms were. After many days, his father finally said yes. Kael was old enough to do simple jobs. He could carry water for the workers. He could help in the workers' village. Kael was so happy. He said goodbye to his mother and sister. He promised to be careful. He and his father started their long walk to Giza. They walked for many days along the green edge of the Nile River. The sun was hot on their backs. At night, they slept under the stars. The sky was very dark, and the stars were very bright. Finally, they arrived at Giza. Kael could not believe his eyes. It was bigger and busier than his father's stories. There were tents and small houses everywhere. This was the workers' village. Thousands of people lived here. There was a smell of bread baking, of dust, and of hard work. And then he saw it, the pyramid. It was not finished, but it was already huge. It was like a man-made mountain. It was wide at the bottom and was slowly getting taller. There were so many men working on it. They looked like small ants from far away. Kael had never seen anything so big in his entire life. He felt very, very small. Kael's life at Giza was very different from his life in the village. He woke up before the sun came up. He ate a simple breakfast of bread and some vegetables. Then the work began. Kael's job was to carry water. He carried it in a clay pot on his shoulder. He walked back and forth, from the river to the workers. The workers were always thirsty. The sun was very hot, and the work was very hard. He saw the real work up close. The pyramid was made of huge stones. These stones were bigger than a man. They were heavier than many men together. Kael wondered, where did these stones come from? How did they move them? His father explained. The stones came from a place called a quarry. A quarry was a big open pit in the ground where men cut stone from the earth. One day, his father took him to see a quarry. It was far away. Men were cutting big blocks of stone from the ground. They did not have big machines like we do today. They used simple tools made of copper and wood. The workers would find a line in the big rock. They would cut a small line in the rock with their copper tools. Then, they would put small wooden pieces into the line. They would pour water on the wood. The wood would get bigger as it got wet. As the wood got bigger, it pushed the rock. After many hours, with a loud crack, a huge block of stone would break away from the earth. It was amazing to watch. It was slow, hard work. Each stone block was a victory. Kael watched the men. They were strong and smart. They worked together. After the stone was cut, the next big problem was moving it. These stones were so heavy. A single man could not move one. 10 men could not move one. It took many, many men. The workers would put the big stone block onto a large wooden sled. A sled is like a flat cart with no wheels. Then a team of men would pull the sled with thick ropes. Kael saw hundreds of men pulling one sled, one stone. They would pull together, shouting a rhythm to keep their pulling strong and steady. The ground was sand, and pulling the heavy sled on dry sand was very difficult. So, the workers had a smart idea. Kael saw men walking in front of the sled. They poured water on the sand, right in front of the sled. The wet sand was much easier to pull the sled over. It was a simple idea, but it worked. It made the hard work a little easier. Kael's job of carrying water was very important. The water was for the men to drink, and it was for the sand. the biggest stones came from a quarry that was far away. To move these stones to Giza, the workers used the river. The Nile was like a big moving road. The stones were carefully put onto huge wooden boats. Kael watched as the big boats floated slowly down the river, carrying their heavy cargo. The river did the hard work of moving the stones over long distances. Once the stones arrived at Giza, the work was not over. Now they had to lift the stones up onto the pyramid. How did they do that? They did not have cranes. They had to use their own strength and their own smart ideas. The workers built long ramps. A ramp is like a small hill. It goes up slowly. The ramps were made of mud, brick, and sand. The men would pull the stone blocks on their sleds up these ramps. As the pyramid got taller, the workers made the ramps longer and higher. The ramp would curve around the pyramid, going up and up like a big road. Kael would watch the teams of men. They worked together like a perfect machine. They pulled the ropes, their muscles tight. The overseer, their boss, would clap his hands to give them a rhythm. Pull, walk, slowly, slowly, the giant stone would move up the ramp. It took a very long time to get one stone to the top. When the stone was at the right level, other workers would use wooden levers to push and pull it into its exact place. Each stone had to fit perfectly next to the others. There was very little space between them. It was like a giant puzzle. Kael's father worked on placing the stones. His hands were strong and careful. He was proud of his work. He told Kael, "Every stone is important. Every man is important. We are building a stairway to the stars for our Pharaoh." Kael's small job was part of this big project. He felt proud too. He gave water to the men pulling the ropes. He saw the sweat on their faces. He saw their determination. These were not slaves. Kael learned this was a very important thing. The workers were respected. They were given good food, bread, fish, and beer. They had doctors if they were hurt. They lived in the village with their families. They were building the pyramid for their king, for their country, and for their gods. They believed their work was important. It had a great purpose. Years went by. Kael was no longer a little boy. He was a young man. He was strong now. He did not just carry water. He worked with the other men, pulling the ropes. He felt the heavy weight of the stone. He felt the sun on his back. He shouted the rhythm with the others. He was a part of the great work. The pyramid grew taller and taller. It was changing the shape of the land. You could see it from very far away. It was the first thing you saw in the morning and the last thing you saw at night. It became the center of Kael's world. Finally, the day came when the main work was almost finished. The last stone was ready to be placed at the very top of the pyramid. This was not a normal stone. It was a special stone called a pyramidion. It was shaped like a small pyramid itself. It was said that this stone would be covered in a special shiny metal, maybe gold. It would be the point of the pyramid that touched the sky. Everyone gathered to watch. It was a very important day. The workers pulled the special top stone up the last ramp. It was a difficult and careful job. Kael and his father stood with the crowd, watching. The stone rose higher and higher. Finally, with great skill, the workers at the top set it in place. A great cheer went through the crowd. The pyramid had its top. But the work was still not done. The pyramid now looked like a big staircase. The outside needed to be smooth. The last part of the job was to cover the entire pyramid with the beautiful, smooth, white limestone. Kael remembered the small piece his father had shown him so many years ago. Workers started from the top and worked their way down. They put the smooth white stones on the outside. As they worked their way down, they also took the big ramp apart. The pyramid was slowly revealed. When it was all done, it was more beautiful than Kael could ever imagine. The Great Pyramid of Giza did not look like it does today. It was covered in polished white stone. It was smooth and bright. When the sun shined on it, the pyramid was brilliant. It was so bright you could not look at it for too long. It was like a giant jewel in the desert. It was a message to the gods. It was a sign of the Pharaoh's power. It was a stairway to the heavens. Kael was a man now. He had spent most of his life working on this one great building. He looked at his hands. They were rough and strong. They had helped build this wonder. He felt a deep sense of pride. He had been a small part of something that would last forever. Not long after the pyramid was finished, the great Pharaoh Khufu died. His body was prepared in a special way. It was a long process. Then there was a big ceremony. The pharaoh's body was placed deep inside the pyramid, in a special room called the King's Chamber. The chamber was filled with treasures and things the pharaoh would need in his next life. Then, the entrance to the pyramid was sealed with giant stones. It was closed forever. The pharaoh was now on his journey to the stars. Kael and his father eventually returned to their village. Life went back to the way it was before. They worked the farm. They lived by the river. But something was different. Kael was different. He had seen what people could do when they worked together. He had helped build something eternal. Sometimes, on a very clear day, he thought he could see a small, bright point far to the north. He knew what it was. It was the pyramid, shining in the sun. Now, our story jumps forward in time. Not 1 year, not 100 years, but thousands of years. The world is a very different place. There are big cities with cars and bright lights. People fly in airplanes. The old ways are gone. But some things remain. In a busy city not far from the pyramids lives a young girl named Layla. Layla has seen the pyramids in books and on television, but today is a special day. Her grandfather is taking her to see them for the first time. They drive in a car. As they get closer, Layla sees them through the window. 3 big shapes on the horizon. They are bigger than she thought. Much, much bigger. They are not white and shiny, like in the old stories. Over thousands of years, the wind and the sand have worn them down. The smooth white casing stones are mostly gone. Now the pyramids are the color of the sand that surrounds them. They look like they grew from the desert itself. Layla and her grandfather get out of the car. The sun is hot. Layla looks up and up and up. The pyramid is so tall, it feels like it could touch the sky. She walks to the base of the Great Pyramid, the one built for Pharaoh Khufu. She reaches out and touches one of the giant stone blocks. The stone feels warm from the sun. It is rough. It is so big. Her hand is so small against it. She closes her eyes. Her grandfather begins to tell her the story. "A long, long time ago," he says in a soft voice, "this pyramid was built by many, many people. They were not so different from us, Layla. They worked hard. They had families. They had dreams." Layla tries to imagine it. She thinks of a boy. Maybe a boy like her brother. A boy who carried water for the thirsty workers. A boy who watched this giant stone being pulled into place. She imagines the noise, the dust, the shouting. She imagines the thousands of people working together under the same sun. that shines on her today. She and her grandfather walk around the pyramid. They see the other two big pyramids, built for other pharaohs, and then they see the Sphinx. The Sphinx is a giant statue. It has the body of a lion and the head of a human. It is carved from one giant piece of rock. It is very old, and parts of it are broken, but it is still amazing. It seems to be watching over the pyramids. It is the guardian of this special place. Layla's grandfather tells her. People ask, what are the secrets of the pyramids? They look for hidden rooms and secret treasures. He looks at Layla. But maybe the real secret is not inside the stone. Maybe the secret is the story of the people who built it. The secret is how they worked together, how they used their smart minds and their strong bodies to build something that would last longer than anything else. They wanted to touch forever, and maybe, in a way, they did. Layla looks at the Great Pyramid again. She understands. The pyramid is not just a building. It is a story made of stone. It is a story of a boy named Kael and his father and thousands of other people. Their hard work is still here. Their story is written in every stone. The secrets of the sand are not gold or jewels. The secret is time itself and the memory of the people. The pyramids stand as a reminder. They remind us that even simple people, working together, can do amazing things. They can build something that reaches for the stars and lasts for thousands of years. Layla takes her grandfather's hand. She feels very small, but she also feels connected to something very big and very old. The sun begins to set. The sky turns orange and purple. The Great Pyramids become dark shapes against the colorful sky. They have seen thousands of sunsets like this one, and they will see thousands more. Their story and the story of the people who built them will continue, carried on the desert wind. Thank you for listening to our story today. I hope you enjoyed our journey to ancient Egypt. If you liked this story and want to learn English with more stories like this, please subscribe to our channel. It helps us a lot. See you in the next video.